usually with a standing ovation. At least 10% of the crowd is like getting ready to go away, and they're like standing up so they could leave, and then they're like, oh shit, he just interpreted that all wrong. So this place, the Community Church of Boston, is such an extremely special place, and that's I mean the work that the Community Church Dean and Amara and everybody has been doing for the past several years, in particular since the pandemic, and taking advantage of the what that had to offer us in its own strange way, and doing all this virtual stuff and getting a huge, bigger following all over the world for the wonderful programming they do here with all kinds of speakers and performers. And the place has been going for a very long time. And back in the 80s, when I lived in Boston, I lived here for part of the 90s as well, but in the 80s and 90s, this was a place where, particularly in the 80s, you had the 1930s generation communists, and 1930s, 40s generation, the folks who were at that time back then in their 70s or so, 60s, 70s, and no, I guess 70s, yeah, 60s, 70s, yeah, and they were really the backbone of the left around here and across the country. The elderly communists, as I thought of them, the septuagenarian communists. Octogenarian, I know, it's like, right. Now I don't think anything is elderly. I don't even believe in the term anymore. Now that I'm getting there myself. I plan on living forever. This is one of those. There was I'll do a song about a woman, Katerina Jakob. Her husband Franz Jakob and her were both leaders of the resistance in Germany during World War II, and Franz Jakob was executed in September 1944. Katerina Jakob survived the war. Her daughter, one of her daughters, just passed away I think she was around 90 or so, and but her granddaughter, also named Katerina, still very much with us. Katerina Jakob, long before she took that name, was organizing workers in Hamburg just the same. Organizing beneath the flag of deepest red, a new dawn of peace and freedom clearly shining in her head. Katerina Jakob first was sent to jail when the trappings of democracy all began to fail. She was frequently arrested in and out of custody while her first husband was in hiding from the Nazis. Katerina Jakob was acquitted of a crime, but the Gestapo had the last word. They weren't finished with her this time. She was sent to Ravensbrück, a killing hunger at her side. She heard of the execution, how her second husband died. For Katerina Jakob, the end was close at hand. She was on a death march with a ragged, starving band, marching through a forest, being led by the SS. What would happen hours later seemed impossible to guess. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. They all sang the Internationale. Katerina Jakob thought about her children and the friends and comrades taking care of them, not knowing yet if any of them survived, not knowing that soon she'd see her daughters both alive. Katerina Jakob watched the German soldiers fleeing, streaming from the east, that's what she was seeing. Allied bombers flew above them, she thought they all might die, and then soon there was the silence of all the SS men. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. They all sang the Internationale. Katerina Yakob saw red flags flapping in the breeze above the Russian tanks, and she fell upon her knees. And so many different voices in so many different tongues sang the most beautiful song that could ever have been sung. In German, Lithuanian, in Polish, and in Dutch, a myriad of melodies as never had been such. In Russian and in Yiddish, Italian and French, emerging from the forest beneath the trench. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. When the sun rose the next morning, it was the 1st of May, and they all sang the Internationale. They all sang the Internationale. Völker hört die Signale auf zum letzten Gefecht. Die Internationale erkämpft das Menschenrecht. Völker hört die Signale auf zum letzten Gefecht. Die Internationale erkämpft das Menschenrecht.